Sanje chuda
ye jona la ja jo ba do da ne ja su chi da gi chi chi ge be sanam gi ro la sa ye do ba sho
Sanje chuda
zo ye jona la ja jo ba do da ne ja su chi da gi chi chi ge be sanam gi ro la ben chi sa ye do ba sho
Sanje
chuda zo ge jona la ja jo ba do da ne ja su chi da gi chi chi ge be sanam gi ro la ben chi sa ye do ba sho
담부때 잠도 생기셔야 되리 잠도 써야 돼 남바 인선 군조스는 잠도 지고를 봐 산제 쳐도 소좀 전주 봐도 다니게 수치했지 이 잠들이 다위 진소기에 처는 진로를 편제 산제 좀 쉬었을 최인의 다위 최인이 기회서는 진로를 편제 산제 좀 쉬었을 생기셔야 돼 잠도다 생기시 잠도디 남바 산제 빈주 그러봐 생기디 티바친구 거래 티바친구 주발라 전주저도 생기 구비르바 어디 주군이도가 잠도디 남바 산제 주부제 생기디 티바친구 주거든.
So we just did a prayer. The prayer is called Refuge and Bodhicitta prayers. The refuge prayers, we took refuge under three objects, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So when we set up that kind of motivation, or when we carry out that kind of mindset or mental attitude, so that's actually ensuring ourselves that we are doing a Dharma, the Buddhist Dharma practice. Yeah. And then the next two lines is whatever I accumulate merit by listening. As a listener, you say listening, by listening this teaching, so then I will dedicate to my goal or enlightenment or the Buddhahood. Right? So then by doing this practice, and the second part, having that kind of mindset or the mental attitude, so then we are making sure ourselves practicing the Mahayana path. So then these two practices called doorway to, the first one is called doorway to Buddhism, and the second one is called doorway to the Mahayana practice.
다들네 내좀 랩차서
했었어.
다들 고발해서 편주 따고 비트제르베
편수 따고 유전에 가서 차 있어. 그지? 근데 니버디 뒤에 있어요. 그래서 당 보지 이게 언제죠? 방제진이다. 방제진이 있어요.
다 방제진이래. 다디 다 로마 따고 제버봐. 따니 아니 방구야지 방 랑구야 줄랑구르바 다제제니 칭이드 뎀바티 멘뎀바티 메뎀바체 팡팡 칭이드 뎀바티 땡구르바 어디 다디 방제 칭이다 땡제 칭이도 당분이 panje chingiti lamar mi takuna me bata me bati chinda washitu nyam senata lama takun takubina ta lamar me takchi tapachi urba ti insan takuna me bati chinda shiti chinda shi lama me bati kinde chires senata tiri londe lome lama ni niji mechi chola duk chenshi chapa matamba jomda jeba mijawu shesung tatiri londe seyati londe lome sete lo tandembe ta lo tandembe shirab tandembe loma tigi lome lamar mijawu ta kanje gyun yubati lama gyun tajena ane loma tigi lamar charingu mares chen za gyun yume taje chen kala lamar meja shina sta ane lama meje ati lama kinde chiare lama yubati kinde chiare sena ta tiba chimbu lama yubala nyingji mebane sta nyingji demba chukubiyari chesa ta nyingji mebane jumbe parigi gyun da jaba us tati tiba chimbe lama webala kende chiyore simjala mibi nyingji demba chukubiyari isi jala nyingji mebane simje nam dunga gyuda jeba le dewar deba meba yinbe isi tiba chogi shinyi du meyus ta tiba chimbe shenye sena da tiba chimbu lama tikende resena nyinji chimbu temba chukugures nyinji temba chukugures semje la dung semje ta nyinji tikende resena semje nam dunghe juda jeba le dewar deba tala nyinji sigiyare dunghe ki juda dewa juji sigiba odi dunghe juda dewa juji isidi nyinji kumbiyare dewa juda temba juji isidi chamba kumbiyare cham nyinji di simja tamja dewa juda temba juji isidi simja tamja dunghe juda dewa juji isidi nyinji kum simja tamja dewa juda temba juji isidi chamba kumbiyare odi yesanita cham nyinji temba chukubiyare isidi.
So now it's on page number 40. The character of one to be avoided. Okay, now the verse number 7. And this is the intelligent disciple does not take as a guru one who lacks compassion, who is bad-tempered and cruel and conceited, right? Conceited, and then the greedy, uncontrolled, and boastful. Yeah. So then the meaning is kind of straightforward here. It says the word intelligent means having wisdom, right? And the wisdom means someone who has shut up the Dhamma, means someone who has wisdom. Wisdom is intelligent, right? So then such a disciple do not take one with this bad characteristic as a guru. If asked the one who should a disciple not take a guru. So then here it says it actually in at the earlier verse it said we need to rely on a proper teacher and that we should avoid an inappropriate teacher. So then in order to understand that, so then you need to know what kind of quality is, if you find a certain type of qualities, then when you need to avoid and when you need to, take that as a teacher. So this is, just talking about like what kind of characteristic or the character needs to be looked into this, the teacher, the guru. And then in those who have flaws list above, from the lacking compassion to boastful, right? They're lacking compassion and so on. So the first list, it says compassion. So the is listed as compassion because in order to become a Mahayana teacher, so then that is the first thing it require to be a teacher. So then the compassion, in order to become a Mahayana teacher, that teacher must have compassion towards all sentient beings. Right? Then they describing what kind of compassion here. So it says, one who is lacking compassion has no wish to liberate all beings, all living beings from their sufferings and the causes of their sufferings. So this means that kind of compassion. So now normally we make a prayer, we say like, may all sentient beings be free from sufferings and the causes of the sufferings, right? This is what we are looking. So then the compassion means like wish to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings and then the causes of the sufferings. That kind of mindset or that kind of mental attitude is called compassion. So then there's another, the mindset is called love or champa in Tibetan champa. So that is a little bit different than the intention is a little bit different than this. So the love intention would be like wish to have sentient beings happiness and encounter or the help, wish them to acquire the causes of the happiness. That kind of mindset is called love. So here when it says compassion and someone who has to have like an intention to liberate or free all sentient beings from the sufferings and the causes of the sufferings. So you need to look that kind of quality first in the teacher. So in order to take that individual as your Mahayana teacher.
Nam tunge juda chebale teoran toba meba yimbe sige yimbe teba tijin la gawa kunji tiri teba chogi shingi to me sita teba chimbe geve shingi ne kandre chikore sena ninji jiten demba chikore sigere ninji meba ti 아니 티바치 친구 계신이 되게 말이 있으죠. 니지 매번에 심제 동에 제래 저런 저거 매봐서 다 심제지 동에 심제지 가르쳐 그래. 동에 날 뒤에나 저는 동에 그때 집에 대나지 마음 삼바티래. 아니 니지 시계를 봐. 저산이 진짜지 심제 간시 통인도 동행이 나왔지 통인도 아니 동행 규대체는 대마로 무슨 냐면 대대로 매버들 아니 티베치 미신이도 그 말이 있어. 티베치 미신이 돼서 심제 동행 간대지 심제 간대지 이내야 뒤 동행이 날 때부터 통도 아니 동행들 되는 집만으로 그냥 받지 로끼니 치고기야래 당연하도 배나 수수 녀를 붙이 동행들 날도 유네티 동행들 되는 집만으로 쓰야지 기그려 봐 뒤에 잘붙이 동행들 동행이 날 때부터는 아니 동행들 되는 집만으로 그냥 별로디 매지가 년가 열봐 다 딘데 많이 버체 동네 전기 심제 견제지네 뒤 동네들 전에 지마로 그냥 버지 개베는 다 인지 첨부 쓰기야리 딜레 전주 인지 첨부 쓰기야리 동네들 전에 지마로 심제 견제지 동네에 나에 심제 견제지네 자니 밤마숨 심제 숨 열버다 자이네 동네들 전기 자지야리 동해기 날 때니 자지야리 동해기 날 때니 녀지야봐 동해기 날 때니 녀들 동해들 때는 지마로 녀밖에 동해기 날 때니 자이초지야봐 디 동해들 때는 지마로 녀별로 지금에도는 띵이지 전부 기기야 말이야 니지 녀저와지 랑게 가서들이 동해들 때는 지마로 쓰지 개버려봐 랑기 마가스 때에 동해들 때는 지마로 쓰야지 기기야 말봐 티나 다 인지 전부 기에서 개봐 말이야 인지 녀저와를 지켜버려봐 어디 예산 인지 침부세야지 동행이나 심제 컨제지네 디 동행도 되는지 마루냐 버치게 손은 인지 침부지시게 어디 예산 인지 침부세야지 심제 컨제지네야 디 동행도 되나 동행이 나와 통수는 동행도 되는지 마루서 양버치기도는 아니 인지 침부게 버려 다야 랑기니 초디 동행도 된 동행이 나와 통인도 동행도 되는지 마루게 랑기 자이 초디 동행이 나를 때부터 통수는 디 동행도 되는지 마루니베 로지기 민두니 인지 침부게야 말이야 어때 인지 침부서야 돼 동해진지 심제 간제지네 델름이네 동해도 된두로 지키고 돈에다 인지 침부게 생겨
전대 인지세야 돼 인지 침벌세 그래
인지
침벌세 그래 so then the one lacking, let's see, go all the way down there. So from their suffering and the causes of their sufferings, and hence is not suitable to be a supreme vehicle spiritual friend. And this here it says, right, Gevishinye, the Tepachimba Gevishinye is a supreme vehicle, the spiritual friends. So then if you see lacking that kind of quality, so then that individual is not suitable for supreme vehicle, the spiritual friends, or the Mahayana teacher, right? Mahayana teacher. So then when we talk about the compassion, so the compassion is, here we are talking about the great compassion. When it says compassion, that means a great compassion. So then the compassion is something that we do have that compassion. So let's say, for instance, if one of our family gets sick, and if you see one of our family is suffering, so then we always wish them to free from that kind of sufferings. And even like, some extent we may think like they may free from that causes of the suffering as well, right? But when we see our enemy, when they suffer, even though they are suffering the same amount, so then there is a danger, there is some factor that may actually prevent us to develop like the same extent of compassion towards that individual. So then it may be not easy to do with the practice compassion with the enemies, right? So that kind of compassion towards your oneself, your family, and family, and not able to develop same strength or same extent of compassion towards enemy. That compassion is called biased compassion, right? This is not a great compassion. So then the great compassion means like, so you're just looking at the sufferings of the sentient beings. You're not actually distinguish between the relationship with the beings. So let's say like, when we have our family member gets sick, so they're suffering, they're suffering, they're tremendous suffering, right? And there's another being, normally you may actually identify that as your enemy, so that being is suffering as well. And when you look at the amount of suffering and the level of the suffering is same, right? Same in these two individuals. There's no differences in sufferings. So then the great compassion means that you're not making any judgment to these two individuals, but you're just like simply developing compassion towards both the individual in the same amount. So that is called great compassion. So great compassion is like for all sentient beings, regardless of your relationship with that individual. So then here when we say compassion, so that refers to that kind of compassion, great compassion.
다음 자민이지 세야지 니지 세야지 동해도 동해기 주다 되는 지마롱 양바들의 인지 세제 대화도 대외 주다 되는 지마롱 세야지 잠바래 자민이지 세야 잠바된 인지니 부디 제디 제적이 동해기 동해 주다 제바들의 되는 지마롱 세야지 제 인지제 대화 세야지 그래서 잠바 세야지 대화 주던데는 주대 제바던 때는 지리만 대화다 대화 주다 덴버 주지 세주바 동해다 동해 주다 대화 주지 세야지 인지제 대화다 대화 주다 덴버 주지 세야지 잠바 세르바 어디에서 동해다 동해 주다 대화 주지 세 동해기 쭉 가르치는 미교와 주부들이 대화도 대외 주단데 뭐 주제 대화세야지 이제 대화지 들어봐 대화지 야 대외 주지 아니 가르치고 대화 주지 대외 주리 미교 주로 주지 대화 주요 봐 대화 주부지 대외 주제 미교와 주지 동해기 주제 다지 신제 탐제 동해도 동해기 주다 대화 주제 세야지 동해기 주 가리래서나 미교와 주들이 시계를 봐 미교와 주지 제수는 아니 제부 동해를 봐 아니 대화도 대외 주단데 뭐 주제 대화디 제부디 이동한테 봐 이 영향이 가르 탐남데 가르세네 여주들이 미거 주로 주의를 봐 미거 주의를 봐딜 미거 주디 류기 숨 나기시 이기 숨이 봐들 미거 주인 봐 미거 주세야지 류기 숨 소주 봐 마침발이 봐 로바리엔 봐 제 숨체 나기 시대 제 참아치기 좀 나게 들어봐 이게 좀 되나sem 누셈로 로다 좀 들어봐 들으면 그거 주세요 디긴 제부들 가려서 동행이 쉬어야 말이 제사 동해다 동해기 주다 잡아 주지 세야지 동해 세야지 가르치고 동해 세야지 가르쳐서는 좋아 동해 세야지 좋아 대화세 좋아 땅용 세야지 좀 열봐 좋아 대화를 좋아 동해를부터 가르쳐서는 동해다 동해 주다 대화 주지 그나 나자라 소바도수 좋아 나자 녀에 좋아들 좋아 동해 세계에 말하지 수서는 telleteni 좋아 동해 기계에 디 제사 다다 동해다 동해기 주디 메게와래 다 책이 gentle 만부야르 봐 그나 라는 지기 춘대베이나 책이 gentle 다 춘디르 봐 춘대베디 아니 그래서 그래 랑기 냠 겨왕아마 사셔베 레니게 와체르바 디 그래서 동네 춘대베디 주디리 돈 동네디 주디 그나 예 춘대베라 때니 우리는 나한테 용구를 봐 디야지 겐디 춘대베라지 겐디기 디지야디 나를 랑기 너버체셔베 시안을 너버체버를 피해봐 디레디 아니 다디 조디리 주대와 조디 라라 동해지 중수나 동해기 주대 조디 가르스네 랑기 겨왕나마 동해기 주 사샤비치여봐 동해 영향이 주 사샤비티 뒷민기야래 그주 현다지가라는 춘 때문에 강에 제버봐 디 주대수 근데 수수 주내버 마중으로 봐디 다 디기 랑기 저와는 마만남수 현은 너버치니 제샤비티다 주주대들이 아니 디겐 체인도 등반이 그 나르사시베 디버디기 데부디 미우야리 어디에서는 동해다 동해기 주다 대화 주지 있어야지 동해디
춘대버듯이 춘대버듯이
춘대버들와 네 동해디 라는 류나서 제가
소화되잖아
동행이 등을 랑기 셴라 쳔데발라 소베테르바 다디 매베 가르스니 샤바치 부르바 티니 초사티 장체스네 디바타 나르길레스 사바티 아니 세드 부르바 어디 있으는 거는 나를 랭이 바사야게 사샤바티 마미야 탑시드 가르스네 랭이 바티파 샤바체 야 초발라 소바틴데 제스네 랭이 바티 다루르바 어디 다루야 디 다스네 아니 제부디 인구 말바 다단데티 아란돌 랭이 바티 제부디 야티 나르사 샤베 랭이 바티 마장 버바 마장 바티게티 민기야리 장샤 바티게티 민기야 말 어디에서는 건지 초산 집단 소사 디바장 딘디지도 잠바 나기 사베 랭이 바티 제부디 랭이 바티 장야들이 나르사 샤베 랭만 민gam바 무여바 디 장야기 치도 초산 집장 치기여바 디 장수는 아니 등에 그제 장샤바티 두 제부등에디 용기야 말이 디 카라티 디 장바리 야 나주 랭은 바사네야 랭은 바트 파장야 이버리 레 삼부사네야 레 삼부사야디 냐 콘도서 제수는 파 랭은 바트 매브수야리 콘도게나 레 삼부지 사시네 레 삼부티 콘도게니스 레 삼부티 매브수야르바 저상은지 가르스거리 콘도다비티 버메스야티 디리
알리티스 큐가게
네
무차사 actually I forgot one point from the before translation. Then when we talk about the compassion, right? Compassion, and there's different ways to develop compassion. The least compassion you need to look into your teacher is that aspiration to liberate all sentient beings from sufferings. Yeah. So then the wish to liberate all sentient beings from the suffering and then the causes of the suffering. So that so at least that kind of quality has to be present in the teacher. That's the one point. And then so then here it says the being from the sufferings and the causes of the sufferings, right? So then then we also make a prayer all sentient beings may free from the compassion. Now we are talking about the compassion. What kind of compassion, right? So when we wish for all sentient beings from the sufferings and the causes of the sufferings, so then the sufferings are the wishing them to liberate or the free from suffering means like this suffering. That kind of sufferings refers to a feeling, a feeling. There are different ways, different types of feelings we can endure, sort of like the pleasant kind of feeling, and then the painful kind of feeling, and neutral kind of feelings, right? When we say sufferings, this is referring to the painful suffering, painful feeling, okay, the feeling of the painful feelings, okay, that kind of suffering. We are talking about that kind of sufferings. So that is when we wish all sentient beings may free from that kind of painful, feeling or the sufferings with that kind of painful feeling. So then the next section is that they may also free from the causes of the sufferings, right? So the cause of the sufferings, we are saying that may all the sentient beings free from the conducting or the engaging into the 10 non-virtuous actions. The easy way to understand is to wishing them to free from the 10 non-virtuous actions, right? So the 10 non-virtuous actions are the causes of the suffering. So when they engage in 10 non-virtuous actions, that 10 non-virtuous actions brings them a sufferings in the future. So that's why we wish them not to engage in 10 non-virtuous actions. This is how we may pray for eliminating or wishing them to eliminate or wishing them to liberate from the causes of the sufferings. This is how we need to think, wish them not to engage in 10 non-virtuous actions, right? So now, when it comes to the sufferings, how we define sufferings, right? Suffering. So sufferings, we need to think that all these sufferings is coming for our misdeeds, and especially like when we engage in 10 non-virtuous actions. So these are the causes of the sufferings, right? So then let's say someone step on our body, our flesh body, with very sharp objects, right? So that sharp object is not suffering, and that is not actually the causes of the suffering as well. So then that knife or that sharp object act as a secondary factor to our sufferings. So then we, in order to ripening or the becoming more evident, our non-virtuous karma or the bad karma is that it also requires like a temporary kind of the factors. So the sharp object acts as a temporary factor for our pain. Our real causes of pain is our 10 non-virtuous actions. Because of the 10 non-virtuous actions, if someone step and a sharp object in our body, so then we feel the pain. So the pain is the suffering, right? So that pain actually came from our misdeed, the misdeed. So that so we the sharp object actually acting as a secondary factor to our pain, but it's not the ultimate causes of our pain. Our ultimate causes of pain is our misdeed, the bad karma, which we have accumulated before. So that's why when we say like may they free from the cause of the suffering, so we wish them to they free from the engaging into 10 non-virtuous actions. So this is how we should think when we say like free them from the causes of the sufferings. Yeah. So then and the same thing you can apply to the happiness or the pleasure kind of feeling. Right? The feeling, there's another feeling that we call it the pleasure feeling. We think of that as a pleasure feeling or happiness, right? So that happiness is coming from the opposite of that, the engaging into the virtuous action, 10 virtuous actions. So that becomes the causes of our happiness. So that's why, so when we say like, may they have happiness, and the causes of the happiness means when we wish them to have happiness, that the feeling that, the pleasurable kind of feeling. And then the causes of the happiness, that kind of pleasurable feelings coming from our engaging into 10 virtuous actions. So then wish them to engage more into virtuous action, opposite of the 10 non-virtuous action, and engaging into 10 virtuous action means like opposite of this, avoiding these 10 non-virtuous actions, right? And then so then let's say then another term we use that is that happiness and the causes of the happiness, and then the suffering and the causes of the suffering. When we talk about this kind of elements, this is also talking about like accumulation of the merits and accumulation of the non-virtuous action, or the bad merit, what you call the non-virtuous, non-virtue, right? Non-virtue, bad merit, right? So then this is totally like talking about like the accumulating merit or not, right? So then if you have accumulated merit, that will bring happiness, and not merit, then won't bring any happiness, right? So then let's say like then when we talk about merits, right? Merit is something that let's say if we committed some kind of negative actions, and then we create bad karma. So that bad karma can be removed before it becomes fruit or becomes more kind of like resultant kind of stage, right? So we can remove that. So then and at the same time, when we accumulate the merits, that can be destroyed. Let's say like in the first moment we have accumulated some merit, and the second moment we get angry. That anger actually destroys our previous the merit. So then so the what you call the bad karma and the good karma are not absolute. So they can be modified later on, and it can be changed in the future.
다디 티베침비 계신이 들이 근데시 그거에서는 니지 집된 템바치 그거리 니지 매버티 야 티베침비 계신이 리 말이스 직제 다 초아시 니지 매번에 초아시에 주바 니지 매진 초라 두바스도가 어다 아니 초아디니 셰당신도 초아디 디야 니 티베침비 계신이 리 말이스
So then second quality is called cruel, or bad temper, right? Bad temper. Bad temper means being extremely irritable. Irritable, yeah. No.
Oda dupa siati, lunga kishala nyoba cheba la kawa kunjin sina dupa siati, choa tani, shedan shindu choa usjeta, dupa siati, lunga yusungi, shala nyoba cheba la kawa kunjin tambas, lunga ki shala never cheba kawa kunji tamba was duga lu de ngagi shala never cheba kawa kunji tamba tele ani dia lamari maris dubasiati.
This is also straightforward. Is a cruel means enjoying hurting others, either physically or with words, right? Or verbally, or physically and verbally. Or bearing a lasting grudge. So this is straightforward. Yeah. This now.
Oda kengba siati, ngaje shi chodia, tibachimbi lamari maris.
And also the someone's ngage means something there's a pride, conceit, maybe same I guess, right? Conceit, right? Same pride. Kengba did you?
Kengba.
Duba kengba. Oh, conceited means pride, right? Pride. Okay, pride. Kengba means pride. Yeah, it's like a pride. It's very different types of pride actually. You know, someone's very educated, and then they're really proud with their education, their knowledge, that kind of pride.
Oh, that in Chapani, Yejela Kunji Tambas, Yeje Kangalo Kunji Tambas, Sena, Chimbuti Yena, Ani Yanti Maris.
So the next one is greedy, means deeply and completely. What's this? Clutching. Clutching. Oh, clutching on. I see. Blunginess. My reading's not good. Sorry. Anyway, so the greedy means like the greedy means another word that means very holding on to their objects, like the belongings, and stinginess, like not willing to use it for like good things. Okay? Greedy. Then here in Tibetan it says, chapa, yeah, chapa. Okay? And in English they say greedy, right? So attached to, kind of attached to your belongings and not using it for like good purpose or something like that.
Yujela Kunji Tambas Jetiche. Tatine Matambani Labe Shila Kusum Herber Jubas. That Matamba Seti Labe Shi so Jugishi Servich. Labe Shi de Lunga Yusum Yarba Lu Mikawa Sum Yarba Magi Mikawa Shierba. Odi Shitila Kusum Herber Jubas di Lunga Yus Karsa Labe Shi Kusum Herbers Kusum Seti Yijiku Najiku Rijkurva Kusum di Mani Leba Matam Bache Karine Gawainata, Megawainata, Kangalpa, Juperchena, Kusum Shirabarasgeri, Kusum Labe Shinamla, Kusum Shirabasitu, Kusum Tangurba, Migere Labe Shi, So Jubala Sobatusu, Yukisum Yerba, Nagishi Yerba, Tusula. Kusum chu madam bache, kusum chhe barchena, tutul jubajena, and it kusum chopper said to you, just the lavish number kusum chopper jupas, dear.
The lavish said the Miguel Jules. Okay, so then the next one is called one who is uncontrolled, right? Is slovenly.
The Migijubung said the kusum damsa the Migiju dirba, till Tanguba. Telepa rubber chesunu, Migijula, Jusuna, Kandu Chindu of Jenny, Donna Machevich in Jubatilla, Kusum Sherba.
So the uncontrolled, what's it? Slovenly in body, speech, and mind in regards to the basis of training. So here, basis of the training is referring to 10 non-virtuous actions, right? And then the uncontrolled means like your body, speech, and minds not controlling from engaging into 10 non-virtuous actions. And in Tibetan it's a dampa. Dampa means actually binding, right? Binding, or the kind of holding or restraining. In English, I may say like restraining from something, right? So the restraining your body, speech, and actions of body, speech, and mind from 10 non-virtuous actions, right? And sort of like not unleashing your mind, body, speech, and mind freely to engage or enjoy 10 non-virtuous actions. So the dampa, which keeps saying dampa means the kind of like holding back from happening something. So dampa means.
That jumpani rangi in the Jungse Zamyang, Shana, Mambas. That Jumba said the rangi in the Chinjini, Tishana, Mambate, Gun of Gini, Tiki, Karasuri, Mape. Rangi in the Jungse, in the Tejini, Tia, Shana, Mamba Chebatilla. Jumba Situa, Jumbani, Rangi in the Jungse Zamyang, Shella, number was.
So then the last one is called boastful, right? Boastful means trumpeting, right? Trumpeting one's quality to others even when they are very slight. So yesterday, even we may have little good qualities. So then you make that as very kind of like what you call this? It's the great about yourself, and you're just kind of like showing it off that little quality to others. So that kind of act.
Or that did you. So, she trod you gent. Trosiati Kundurba. You jeans in you that you see it. You could just say, Rangi in the Jungsetan Chinjuchini, young member, Chung Chimbuchini, Bacon to Jay.
She had a country remote show, Swinny less. Kaya, you're the Gugent after the railways.
You could chance it. City, you could chance. Nani seem to do better.
So, okay, so let's see, where is this? Okay, and then it says, we also read in the 32nd section of the Dharanava Yogini Tantra, one do not become devoted to any guru who is bad tempered or deceitful, whose speech is very cutting, and who is content with these qualities. Anyways, in Tibetan it's a yo-gyu, right? Yo-gyu, there are two things, like yo and gyu. Yo means, yo, senakarsaging.
You said the Rangi in the Mebala,
Yo, the first one, yo means, this is like two extremes, sort of like, yo means like, if you not having any good qualities, but you're pretending having lots of qualities, is called yo. Okay, this is actually deceiving, so like a form of deceiving, right? And gyusena.
Gyusena de rangi yunde mebala yunde chungse ji yune dia ngamba chia dia ba. Yu gyusena de rangi gyun de beya.
Gyun de beya.
Yu gyusena de diri ni domne rangi yunde chungse tam yubati ya ngamba che.
So in general speaking, you and here I think they translated deceiving, right? Deceitful, yeah, deceitful. So you can think of as if you have any faults, then you hide it from others, and then if you don't have any qualities like good qualities, you pretend like you have it. So that kind of action is called deceitful, and you in Tibetan.
No, this one.
No, this.
This one.
Lots of.
Oh yeah. Taniba, when a temperature, Lama teaching the ancients. That danger Lama danger tinny the carriers. Tayagi, tinny the carrier, you did the carriers yet. Then she do the lottery tennis. Not a huge joashi.
Sir, not all
you did tension.
아니 근데 쇠다 당라 요즘에 세스도가 쇠다 당라 요즘에 나다 유기 조라시 닝제 den시 den주케
아니
니준이 용수시
뭐도 den시 들을 로드된
나
아니 쇠단
쇠된 당라 요즘에 나
딜이
나
어다 딩이 주세야지 딩이 주니 용수된
그래서
denshi sinati denje duga dambani lu dambas duga denshi dula seti nga dambati je lotu densi ne yumebe pati yi dambas ta lunga yusum di dambati le denshi dula lotu densi ati densiati ani karere
류담바지
na lui tambati je
두완이 마 담바지
dije yani
로드 댐나 유메베 바지
yume pa yi tambati je odi
okay, so I'll just read forward. This is it says steady and calm, intelligent, patience, forthright, right? Without craft of falsehood, knowledgeable in the practice of mantra and tantra, and kind and well-read, right? Proficient in the 10 principles. So these are the skill in the drawing of the mandala, knowledgeable in the practice of the expanding mantra, possessed of the great faith in the, and calm senses, right? Okay, master. Okay, to explain that the word steady means physically controlled, right? Calm means control in speech, and from intelligent to without craft or falsehood refers to the control of the mind. So let me just read out here. Listen up.
dati lotu dan demba siati sherif chiwatirba ani sobani nöjele chimeni be soba siati che dunge danlengi soba singiti che chula neto gi soba sumyiba odiri sobani nöje dang siati nöjele chimeni rala nöba chingi chichuna nga namsa tila nönenti chimeni nyambati nöjele chimeni be soba sigiri chi rāna nirpa chi nye chuchu na ani tila nönenti chi mingi nyamba di ani nöje la chi mingi pe soba sayati chi
Then continues, it said that intelligent means very wise, patient means having for means intelligent patience, yeah, steady. Let's see, yeah, Intelligent means very wise, and then the patience mean having forbearance for those who do one harm, for austerities. How do you say that? Austerities. Austerities, and for the profundity of the doctrines. Anyway, so that means there are 3 kinds of patience, right? Patience with your harmer, and patience with the Dharma practice, and patience with the, what was the other one? Your Chöla Chimini Vesuba. And then Kasa.
Yeah, Nujil
Chimini Vesuba. Chöla Chimini Vesuba. So the patience with your pain, right? There are 3 kinds of patience. That is referring to that patience. No.
Yes, ma'am.
No.
Oh, that did it. Nujil Chimini Vesuba said it. Chigan and never chess on the singing, but you love sooner. That you let the singing, but you pal lamna. Did Laming Maris yet.
Yes.
Could around the singing about Lamyeti, Rangi, Munti, Dube Munti Chigriba, Yabuma Imbe Munti Chigriba. Delia knew Yakupa land, Javiana, to put the chess pan to wear. Just a quick singing, but you love sooner. Tell them son singing, but you love sooner. Could man to judge yes to Sangriba. Me to judge to Sangriba. That's the hang till a panini chip, Namsachi Siki Lavayana. Could to judge to Samiati Rani teacher. To judge to do somebody to judge the red to be Arba. Pajoti to judge to Sangriba. Pena singing, but you love sooner. Rangitipa Nyambachi Malamna. And the Tujati Jesu Matambarba. Pinatu singing, but you love sooner, part singing, but you love sooner. Tujati Jesu Tani, Rai Tuja Chabarba, who meet to judge do some Jenny, and Tujang Mundichiati Rangi, Munditi Tujati Jesu Rodba. What it is, just a singing, but you love sooner, till part singing, but you love sooner. I need the Karasure.
Nujil Chimini Vesuba.
Now, Nujig Jimmy Pesavas, Nujil Jimmy, Nune Jimmy, somebody, Sobaku.
For instance, the first type of patience is called forbearance from those who do one harm, right? So someone shows harms to you. So the forbearance means being patient with that kind of individuals, right? So then the simple way to put it out is that, so then when they say bad words or harsh words towards you and not responding in the same act to them, to back to that individual. So that is called a patience with someone who is harming to you, right? Patience with that. So then there's many logics and there's many reasons why we should not respond in a negative way back to that harmers, those people who harms to you, right? So one of the logic or one of the reason why we shouldn't do this you can think of is that if there's someone uses like harsh word towards you, and if you say back them the same word, like back words, right? So then the very reason you get angry at that person is that he says something bad to you, right? That is the whole reason why you get mad or you get angry. And if you do the same thing for them, that's not actually advisable to do this, because your reason being mad or angry is that he says something bad to you. If you say the same thing bad back to them, so then you're acting the same thing as you were like saying this is the bad person, right? So this is the one of the reason why we should not get angry back to them. So there's many others, right? So that kind of practice of patience is called being patient with the harmer, or here it says the forbearance for those who do want harms, right, to you.
Oh, the conduct 지금 every genetic theory 미습 가르쳐 그래 Midu by Susu Chijin, Damba member T. Kondu Chena, Di Kondu Cheve Deputy Su Midu Bachi Vibri. Midu Susu Chijin. The Kondu Chesun Lamsa, Don Mabuch Rigriba, Kondu Chiche. Any could Joachimandu sitting as soon to wear. Midu Besurba. Yes, I need to dress with it. Nyave Sudita, Ita Sutu, Mitu Besuri, Mitu Besurba, Mitu Susuchi, Tampa member T City, Sendelia, Kondu Sasuna, Namsa, Toma, Baje, Ani Karavu Suchi, Kajujo, Tinchi, Kondu Seti, what is any Sedegara could Mitubesu thing to have Kondu. Sasuna, and it Sechimala Nyadulu Jubiarba, Nyadulu Jua Yansani, and Nyasu, Midagsu, Tundusu, Nesun, Sudi, Sumituberva, Nyare Sudi Mitubari, Idag Sudi Mitubari, Tundusu de Mituberva, Rago of Jiba, Puyer. Or Tindechiriba, Tindechili Kigriba, or T. Yesani, Mitu Susu Jijing, Tamba member T. Seati, Kondu Chena, T. Jebutil Mitu Besusu Jijing, Tamba member T. Suda Tsumiship, Namju Troji, Misu by Newton and Rituages. The Kondu Jesuna, Ni Shiva Hotu, Nandru Kigri. What is any Kundu say? Kundu Tabitiba mess to a Shedanta Bitiba mess, Shedanta Kundu say at the Chibarava. Shedanta Bitiba mess here. Savata Bukatu mess. Savasing attitude, Savakumure. Savati Katu Senekiwas here. Savata Bukatu mess. And Savati. Gewang and a top chimbu yimbari. Karis and a kondu chidamba soba kumsuna, then could shiragit subit Karasa top chimbarua. Around the soba kumsati, Taras near Kunya metu soba kumsine, Sobagi can't check Yamarva. In a Sobagi can't change the soba kumsa, the Munesoba kumbarva. What is any Sobas community chita? Sobat the Gavagna and the top chimbachi in Jabari. Come to Sobat of Gatu Miss, Gatu in a Gival Sigia. Come to Tabitiba Mess, Shedanta Bitiba Mess. The Benanet, the Bachi Shoti, Shedanta come to Gatu Binane, and a Gatu. Choti Choti Karasine, Sobati Rich, Sobata Katumis. What is any Rana never changed Chuna, and the Sobakum Puyati, and it Gavan and Choti Jubatim. You were dead to them, but came out to the Sobakum Kumur of Chiribas Sobati Sobagi. Sobakum said the case Yamare. Sobakum said the Narana never changed to Tambas, Sobakum Tunitati, Sobakum Tiriba. Rana never changed Medusa, Sobakum Senator, never changed Messanes, Sobagi can't Yamare. Manduta T. Senator, Sobata Bukatu Mess, Sobasinati. Gatu Senate, Givari, Gavin, and the top chief to Sabati. What did it?
So then, when it comes to practice of patience, again, there are many reasons we should think about it. For instance, from the text, he said that the anger, which is actually opposite of the patience, right? Practice of patience. So it says anger actually calls you to have very unattractive physical appearances, right? And then it makes you unholy beings, right? Unholy beings, and then it takes away your ability to make a right judgment, right? There's a list of that. So there's one stanza from a text. So this describes the disadvantages of anger, right? So then that's true. So then when we get angry, so then actually this angry causes us to have takes on our appearance, takes on very unattractive appearances. So sometimes, I was saying this, sometimes when you get so angry, then our kind of like face becomes disformed, sort of like then the mouth gets like uneven, sort of like something. So then one side of your the mouth kind of like it falls kind of down, right? Sort of like he creates kind of really ugly image, like when you get angry, right? So then so that is disadvantages of the getting angry, right? Angry. So you need to think about this. You use all these reasons why you shouldn't get angry. And then the second one, it says, and then when it says, it causes you have very unattractive appearances, it's not only talking about this life only. So then in the future lives, that actually creates a karma to have very bad appearances, like we can born as hell realm beings, and then the animal realm, animals and hungry ghosts and stuff like that. When you look at the image of their body, is not really attractive, So then they have like all kinds of images describes like how they look really not unattractive, sort of like they have like growing hair where they're not supposed to grow hair. And they're like horns, they're not supposed to have horns and stuff like that. He was creating those kind of like, very ugly images, right? So I may not be able to go through all the things. So you just imagine very unattractive the appearances that can cause in the future, not only this life, not right this moment, and also in the future lives too, right? So then the second one is called, says it makes you unholy beings, right? And then it takes away your, the ability to make a right judgment, stuff like that. So that's true too, right? So you can think about all these things. So then also you should think that it's said that the anger is the worst, the negative actions, right? That actually, the heaviest kind of like negative actions, and the practice of patience is one of the best. The virtuous actions, right? Because the practice of patience is very difficult. That's why I said that it's one of the best the one of the best kind of practice, right? So then the practice of patience, when we talk about practice of patience is that something we do to carry out that kind of practices when we interact with people, right? So then when we do meditation by yourself, we think like we have very enough strength of patience ourselves, and then at that time actually you don't need to do practice of patience. There's no to be patient with, sort of like patience with, right? Practice of patience means like when you go out and interact with people. So practice of patience only can be done when you have problems. So if you don't have any problems or anything, so then you don't need a practice of patience. And it's even though if you think you have a practice of patience at the moment, that is not actually valid. It could not be valid. It could be wrong, right? So then to make it sure your practice of patience is like reliable, or like have like a good amount of strength, that only you can tell when you encounter with people, when you encounter problems. Then if you exhibit that kind of level of practice patience with that individual, so then you can tell you can say by yourself you have a practice of patience. Otherwise, just doing meditation by yourself and being yourself alone at home is not a practice of patience.
Coverage.
가지 세브리 네체 차수 가지 숨긴 배나
다 가지를 지면이 됐어 봐봐. 어디 동행 다니는 게 수바세야 되시게. 어디 동네 다니는 게 수바세야지. 아름도 최지도 강에 최그리 봐. 강에 최인도 좀 봤더니 Telia Tonechi, Tunetune, Taneng Subasiati, Tuneti, Tandulen Guyari, and to Tune Courage Chunsune, T. Rangi, Judy, Yoya, Judy Susu Sabari, Satarva, and it Tuneti Yungierva, T. Deputy Tuneti, Deputy Judy Rang Satarva, just Sabias and T. Deputy, and Rana Mingierva, just Rana Kange can reach Chesune, T. Kange Tebati in a Tuneti Yungierva, Tuneti Tanto Langures, Tuneta Lingus Subase, T. Carreras and a Rangi, Chenama, Tindig Tunet in the Unity, Lech Mapuch Sabariva. When I shake it on it, Suzuki Lapsune, the Chengama Rangi, Parutilia, Suzu Money, Yomabula, Suzu Mashaba Yarba. T. Deputy Rani Mimberva, Jesane, Suzuki T. Rangi, Judy, Suzu Mayavi, Judy Susu Satarva, Sabiasani, Nani Susuliti Suzu Magierva, or did Chesan T. to me, Tangnis, Suzu Mavalatani, Kami Chesunati to me, Tangu, Tangu Languri, Chevering, Rangi late Satarva.
The second type of patience is in the translation it says for austerities, right? Austerities, and sometimes it says enduring sufferings, right? Patient to endure sufferings. That could become in like a different forms. For instance, when we do a practice, Dharma practices, definitely we're going to face lots of problems along the way. Like when we do the practices, right? So then, if you're willing to take and willing to accept that kind of problem along the way of your practices, so that is called being patient with your sufferings. And another one is that if someone says harsh word to you, so then definitely that when you hear that kind of bad words about you and something criticize you. So we actually feel that, and that feeling is not actually, good and very favorable, right? It's a very kind of undesirable kind of feeling, right? We do experience that feeling at the same time. So then, instead of getting angry into that individual, so then you should think that, so you should accept that pain, so you should expect that pains, and also you should, expect and accept that pain. Because you should accept that pain because so I'm the one actually started that from the beginning. So you should think that. So I'm the one actually who made that happen for myself. I have created that such karma. So because of that karma, so then I'm having this difficulties, hearing all this word and it hurting me. And so you should accept that kind of pain yourself. And accepting that kind of pain instead of retaliating to that individual is you accept that pain and endure that. So that is called another form of enduring your suffering yourself with good reasons. No, there's not.
What is that? Dunge Tani Subasiati, Ranakanga Kajit Chesuneti, Rangi late Satsarin Berba, Satsarin, Yasaniti, Kangeti chain, Kangeti, Yagi late Rang Satsarba. Tinsel, Tunget Tangling is over Kungiere, Tungeti Rangi, Lang and Vetebu says on some Chesuna, Rana Tangit Chesuna, Nger Rangi Lang and Versace Vetebuti, Tatariti, Nyal Makibache, Deputy Me Tele, Tini, Ati Mejuchiar, Karine, Chiagi, Tashi, Mimberba. Tanyali Kitamba. Leg in the deputy Yamal means sooner, Tapshitani Amarba. At under around the meet and at me sooner, the Tantulene, Tinikarasuri, laying in the table cells on Sambachi Weary. I needed Tapshi Mabuchi Guyarba, but this is lengen debu sebe gyudu ne gengen namdulu wa chingilo seyati lama chubena yarba wadi yesani rala kange che yindu lengi be debu sesun samba chebe ine lengi be debu seyal pingi yari ai lengen debu sebe gyudu ne gengen namdulu wa chingilo gengen bati lamdu kebari gengen bati che du tamba lengen be debu sesun samba chene gengen bati lamdu kebari 어쨌든 lengen debu sebe gyudu ne gengen namdulu wa chingilo seyati tiri
So then if you are strong enough and if you have good resource of like meditating on the anger or the patience, the practice of patience, stuff like that. So then that kind of event, like if someone says harsh words to you and it like happens bad thing to you, so you can actually sort of like you can sort of like enjoy it. Or I don't know, so make it like a really good thing, like a good dharma practice, sort of like. So you should think that when you suffer, someone says bad thing to you and it hurts you, and then you should think that so that is very good thing for me, because having this experiencing this moment, that actually the destroying my bad karma. This is the one way to destroy my karma. That means like when I experience that, one of my bad karma has been exhausted. You can think you can think good about yourself, instead of like having this not happy. So then you should think good thing about you, right? So one karma has been exhausted now. You don't need to actually experience anymore with that karma that's been done. And another way you can think of like let's say like what happens if that karma is ripening in lower realms and in other realms like hell realm and stuff like that. So then this happened to happen like a ripen up in me at this time. So then I have all this capacity to deal with that kind of problems and that kind of difficulties. Then I have all these tools to deal with that kind of such a kind of like a difficulty time and everything in this life. If this same thing, same karma, if they ripen in the lower realms, so that even though you might think that I have not actually had that tools and anything that I can do about it, so you need to suffer in like really like a maximum kind of like way. But even though if you realize that, so you cannot do anything at the moment because you are not actually capable of doing anything with that suffering. So then if you think about that, you should feel good about yourself. So this is a very good thing. It happens to me at this moment, so that I can deal with that. That's been done. It's a very good thing that it didn't happen in other places like lower realms and stuff like that. And also I must say that this is very like a special kind of practices in the Lama Tsongkhapa prayer, in the Lama devotion prayer. It said that the Lenge Debusa Vidyutanam is whatever I experience this moment, I may see that is as the one way to finish my negative karma. Right? Lenge Debusa Vidyutanam. Kengenam do longba chingi love means like bless me to turn that unfavorable event to favorable event. This is a strong prayer from Lama Tsongkhapa. The seven niba the sasu. Kaji seven sasu.
The Tome Danging Suba.
Kaji sasu.
Kaji Jimmy the Suba.
No.
Any?
Any sumba the casa.
Chilling it to be
Chilling it to be so.
That chilling it to be Suba City.
Choose some more sobate.
The choose some more Subati City. Choose some chiva teach. Can I tell you soon? Choose some more Subati Subacongri. The Rangi Chiva teach. The can I tell you into the Makangi Tonegi Subacongri.
So then the last kind of patience called the forbearance for the profundity of the doctrines, right? Another word, the simple way to understand is that being patient with Dharma practices. So then when we carry out our Dharma practices, we're going to face lots of obstacles, and then the willingness or ready to face all this problem or the obstacles along the practices, that is called being patient with Dharma practices.
답변에 출랑에 두기 최제니 어디 최딜은 대부분도 삼바르부터 강에 체인도 전부들은 최딜로야기 최딜 땅야기 로 계시기야 봐 어디 있으니 디 체는 출랑에 두기 서바세디 최제바디 체 강에 체인도 전부는 서버 공야들이 출랑에 두기 서바시기야 내 최땅야기 최디 벤투미도 삼바르 제베이나 아니 최들에 제부메 바르 지선 담바르와 어디에서 뒤두다 출렁에도 그서바세티 공부해야.
So the forbearance with what is this? Okay, let's see. The forbearance with doctrine, something doctrine, right? I see. Anyway, so okay, I'll say forbearance with the Dharma practices, right? That's like this actually helping us not to abandon Dharma practice in the middle way, sort of like when we get in the middle. So it helps us to stay on the path or on the Dharma practices continuously with that kind of patience, practice patience. What happens is like when we do practice, we put lots of effort, and then of course we're going to face lots of obstacles. That's not going to be easy, and it may take very long time, sometimes, right? A long time. So then after a while, so then you put this effort, and then you do like all these things. Then you don't see the result, very kind of like satisfying kind of like a result moment. And you get tired. So then because that all this comes, then that can actually cause you to abandon Dharma practice in the middle, sort of like. So then if you have this kind of patience, so then it forces you to keep going until to achieve your goal.
다들 세베 당되는 신의 세베 꿈나 네네 수이동아 남이가 수이동아 고 제야지 용야 용구여봐 미도 수수 제제 담반 멤버티 추다 추미시베 남주 초지 메수바이 내주 미도 주와 제시여봐 세베 신시 당게 임되나 대 서바 군수는 콘도는 이미 시작부터 도초되게 강가티 서바 군이 우리 집에 배는 서 콘도기 미투수수 지진이 시작으로 서바기 아니 서베 당데 수유동아 기그리스 서바스 군나 남이 수유동아 되게 기그리스 서베 당딩스야디 미투수수 지진 콘도기 미투베 수수 기그리스 콘도 제서는 냐왈리께는 냐외수디 미투베 소리 이달리께서는 미투베 소리 돈루리께는 드라고르 지제 포르 지제티니 기그르바 미투베 소스 제바레스 제바레 콘루비 미투수수 지제 담배 멤버티 추다 주미시베 남주 초바지리스 다시 세베 시신 윤게 남지도 서바 공부이는 미두베 수세아티 수삼부지그리스 수이동아티 세베 데부텔 수이동아티 세베 당데스야 지르바 서바 공부는 수이동아리 지그리스 남이기죠 세베 미두수 담바 멤버지 담바 기부 담발레 기부 담배는 추바지그리스 미두수수 제지 담바 멤버 티세야디 콘루제나 미두베수 기그리 수수 기그리 아니 담바 멤버 티그리스 아니 추다 추미시베세 데부 규개발을 전에 데부 대화 윤약이 남주디 신기는 딥파 초부지게 해서 kondu chesuna ani kondu chesuna su jujawa chebala tene debu dewa yuna tipa chobare kondu tiki su mitu kondu chena su mitu chigiriba mitu su sichiji seati soba komba yina su yidu wala gigiyari sobe tangden seti tangda temba su yidu wala mi kande chige thone ya kapuchi ya ki subdi tete chi gigiyari ba sobe tene soba tichena kondu chena metu su chiche tamba member tiche ta soba kune ra tamba ke siyate jibu tambi nala chukeri tamba chuda tsumi shibe namjo chubu maris mesu bayi nyendu duwa chigiduwa soba ki tendu le pigiris soba kumsuna tendu le jigiris kondu chesunu nyendu le jigiriwa soba ki nyendu le tendu le jigiri tendu siyate lami umandu lami koba sigiriba tendu le jigiris wadi yesa tak kondu tusu kondu yine kondu ge sebe yinde tusu kum kondu ginami tusu kumba yine deni kondu shu ching tukuri soba kumyati shi chir tukuri desi chasa kondu tabi diba mes kondu ti diba chisho jimbari soba tabi gadu mes soba kumyati ngani gadu sini gyawa sigari gyawa gato chisho ti ta soba jimbari.
So then if you remember that quotation from a text, it goes like this: the miduk means kondo means anger. Anger makes you unattractive, and then makes you I just go with the list, okay? The unattractive, and then it makes you unholy being, and it takes away your ability to make a right judgment, and it causes you to rebirth in lower realms. These are the four things, right? Disadvantages of anger. And then the last line, and this text, the last line is that the soba, right? Soba means the patience. Patience brings the right opposite of that, all this list, right? So that means like the anger brings midupa means unattractive appearances, right? So unattractive, and then if you do practice patience, so then it brings it makes your appearance becomes very attractive, and that can actually attract many people, and then you will have more friends, you know, and good friends, sort of like that. And then the dambamimbati means then the anger makes you unholy beings. So then the patience makes you, you know, very holy, like holy beings or noble beings, right? Kind beings or kind person. And then the sudasimi. Okay, so then the anger actually takes away the making a right judgment. Right, judgment means like normally you may be a good person, and then the you are a very you know, the reasonable person, or the wise person to make right judgment, right? You may have all this ability, but when you get angry, so then you are not in that situation anymore because of the anger. Anger takes away that kind of abilities. It makes you kind of crazy, sort of like, right, crazy. So then you cannot make a right judgment at the moment because there's no ability to make a right judgment because it's been robbed or it's been like taken away by your anger. Normally you are, you know, really reasonable person, but at the moment you are not. You won't be like that, right? So this is the disadvantage of your anger, right? And the last one is said that so the Nyendujo means like, you know, anger takes you to the lower realms. Again, the lower realms, you know, all this, you know, they are not actually attractive, and then there's lots of suffering, stuff like that. But then the opposite, if you do the practice of patience, so then it brings high rebirths, like, you know, all these good rebirths, like human beings and so on, sort of like that. And again, there, and also it said that there's no such a bad karma like what you call the anger, and then there's no such a good karma like patience.
that's
주체가도 되었다가 Plus, okay, we have, it seems like we stop at 12:30 or 12:30, right? So I'm saying we have 30 more minutes. Have any questions? Any questions? No questions? Yes.
Question. So, just going back to when you say we're supposed to enjoy when someone is like says something harsh to us, that I think I understand that just a little bit, like
Okay.
like something like we should be happy because we are burning our karma,
yeah.
like that, right?
Yeah.
But is that what it is, or is that, or are we supposed to like sort of like laugh it off and later on meditate on like patience?
Oh,
Or
okay,
like,
okay.
how do we
okay.
do that?
Okay, okay. The penetration of this is the Quran. The king and Lamdu long says you are the teachers and this was to give Pendelia, the Cheche, the Kalpanamichi Susu to Jared Shavina. Deep at the Yapun, laying a saver at the Tavores, the Tavores from Wuslerwa. The Kandachi was your penetration, Magic Susu, singing about a chick lavina. Cardo delay, the Gamorage show, party show, and par draw Susu now jail there's that because they get this you think a gom japchi and then the gom jap in the chair and this Chetan Namenti and the chair is used.
Apache ni Nellenti Majebati, the Yapuchun somebody, Aleti Yapuchun, ne Kuna never jibati, Shelpan, never Majebati, Bay Yapuchun somebody, and Tine Digi Nelleti never Majeb, Nene Majebati, Kakuya Carres, and never chesune. DJ to get some luta. Been a Shannon never chef, been a conduit chevine, Metu Susuji, Tamba me, but Chimit, Chimita Chimiship, and Namju, Mesupa in Andrew Juachi, Siati Samluta, and it's super combating David. Dandruff River, or Tindig Tani.
Yeah, definitely, you can do that, you know. So when you encounter with people, so then there maybe the situation may be tense at the moment, right? You may not be able to do all this meditation or something like that. But you know, don't respond negatively. You know, try not to respond negatively to that individual. You know, don't be like offensive with that kind of situation and stuff like that. Then when you go back, so you know, you can take time and think about it. You know, so it's sort of like a meditate, right? Think about it. So let's say like, you know, so today I'm very like, you know, sort of like lucky that I was able to restrain myself from not doing bad thing to others, you know, even though they do such things to me. So then I was able to restrain ourselves, and then you know, so then the good thing about it is that you should rejoice it. You should think that, you know, like kind of enjoy it, sort of like that, because you know, let's say like if it happens to be like I've been like very angry at that person, if I respond in a negative in a way, so then because of that act, I'm going to suffer such a thing in the future. And then the Rinpoche actually read through that quotation again, you know, like making you. This is actually from the middle, entering to the middle way text. I think it's like chapter 6 right in the beginning. I'm not 100% sure anyway. So this is very nice line actually. Okay, so then you can refer to all these lines. You know, think about all in each and every section, sort of like, you know. So then I would be like born in a low RAM. Then I would become a very bad person and stuff like that, right? So guess what? Like, you know, so that because of my patient at the moment, so that I don't need to suffer all this in the future. So because of that, you should enjoy and you should like, you know, feel good about yourself, and you should kind of, you know, like think that, you know, it's good. You have like, you are in like a good side, sort of like.
Thank you.
You know, the Nuneti, Janju Sembanam give never chairs the Nuneti Pember to Gerva, and under that Nuneti Pember to Matune, Nuneti never much ever the Yabuba, what is in the Kaukum, 아니 전주 선반 남기 안내 never just delay pember to be erba dindegi to kiari to spay yapuri manjure dinde Geneva show some Javaina Genju Sembevi Java to Sule Kawakumi, how can you choose
And also, if you happen to be like not responding in a bad thing back to that individual when you do the meditation, you also think about it like something like this. Like if it is, if that individual have done that such a bad thing towards bodhisattva, so then the bodhisattva, instead of like not responding in a negative way, but that bodhisattva will, looking forward to help that sentient beings. He was trying to find a way to help the sentient beings. This is their intention. This is their level of practice, right? So that for me, I'm not capable of that kind of stand at the moment, right? So at least I was able to restrain from that, like doing bad thing back to them. So then, so I may able to help this individual in the future, like a bodhisattva.
Oh, dini semba sana sadana mya sang semba nina sadana mya nges tamje samba dala rala be samba sangye thoble beber jas oti sung berba jasa samba sambu chena andro sadi sambu chi legli lamke sambu chi ingures semba sana sadana mya sang semba nina sadana mya nges semba ngemba chi jebe ne jigi rosati ngembachi lamdi ngembachi oda sadana myangis tamje sambata ralebes ante tamje dan ngembata sambuta ngembasya dis kanje tamje sambe suishabarba oda isne tamje sambata ralebes samba same tabla bebarchas Samba Sambu Yagi Tolan Beguris. Careers Samba Sambu Juna, Sati Sambu, Lamdi, Sambuji Yungus. Samba Nemba in a Sati Nemba, Lamdi Nemba. Oti Yisane Samba Sana Satanamia Sang. Samba Nena Satanamiangi. Tamje Samba Dala Ralebes. Samba Samya Tablan Bebercha, Samba Sambu Yagi, Tablani, Betun Chiburis, Vati Savati Chitu, any word about what is around Debu Sambu to be a Debu member to be a Mari. In Medubasani, Debu Sambu Chibu to Sem Sambu Chibuari, Samba Sana Satanamia Sans Chibu. Then Debu. Samba Sambu Mana Samba number Chigin, a certain Amiang is Rosetting and Rulari Doyag Lamdi that laying in Batirva Satan Amiang is Samba Sana Satan Amiang Tamje Samba Tala Ralabis Samba Sana Tabla Beverage Samba Sambu Yagi Tablan Bejuris, that he carries in some sang Sambu, you had to get him Bushiburva. She must run Sambu, Dungi Dugi Amari, Dewan Dugi, Dungi Menduna to some Sambu Chibuya. Dewan Duna, some Sambu Chibuya, Dungi Menduna, some Sambu Chibuya. Some Sambu unit, Dungi Amari, Dewa Yungri. Dungi Menduna, some Sambuchi. Kange Menduna, Dungi around the Dungi, Tanda thing, Dungi Mabu Yunga, Dungi Dumarba. That's it, Dungi Menduna Karju, that's Karju, some Sambuchi with some Sambuchene, Negave, Susuki Biari, Negavarandi. Ani draw to Sule, they were dead to it. Ani Chimay, Dendukovan to Buruba. Joa Chimay, Sem Sambuti, Lam Sambucheni, T. Rosa Sambu, Dendule, Gigi Erba. Semba Samna, Satanamia Sam said. Semba Sambuchena, tenruli giyari. Semba sam ngena sadana myangis. Semba ngamba chesuna ngedu dosati ngedu sumyimbari. Sadana myangis. Semba sambu chena dosati tenru sumti yimbari. Lada lamai mis che tenru sumdaba ngedu sumdaba. Vadi sesane ani samba samay tabla beba chas ani dewan dugu tuneta samba samay la tabla begu yari tungen mendo ne samba samay tabla begu yari ta tungen mendo dewan dugu ene ta kari chugure samba chugu yari samba sana satana miyasang samba nena satana miyangi tamje samba dala ralepe samba samay tabla begu chas
And then it said that in Tibetan, which is quoted from a text, it says Sambasana Sadalame Samins, right? So it means like if you have right motivation, the Sambasambo means good heart and good thinking, right? Sambasambo, noble mind. So if you have that and your the path and then the ground will be positive. If you have if you don't have Sambasambo or the good heart, and then the path and everything will become negative, right? So then and the next two lines it says all of our good and bad actually depends on how we think, and this is depends on like totally depends on like the way of we thinking, right? If you're positive, then the positive comes, and the negative comes. Sort of like it depends on the way of thinking. Right? So then, for instance, for example, so we as sentient beings, so we always trying to avoid sufferings, and we are also looking for happiness all the time. This is our, like a same kind of like. This is our sentient being is motivated with that kind of intention, right? These two things. So then if you're really serious about this, right, then wanting to be happy and trying to avoid any form of sufferings, so then the practice of being Sampasambo or developing Sampasambo is the best tool, and that one practice can actually obtain or acquire, you can achieve these two things. One, we are trying to avoid the sufferings that will happen if you have some sambo. And then another one is we are looking for happiness all the time, so then that can happen if you have some sambo. So that's sambo, good heart, all these things, right? So then the one practice actually can fulfill our two desires, like two things, like to our kind of goals, sort of like goals. So that can actually fulfill by doing one practice, right? And if you being sambo, if you have a sambo, and also your life will be much easier. And then along your lifespan or in your life, then you will have like lots of favorable kind of friends, and then you will have lots of help from your friends. And then because of your sambo, makes you happy, and then because of your happy, so then you can create your environment a really happy place. So that's why, so whatever we do, like everything is depending on the way of thinking, Sampasambo. If you have the Sampasambo, so then everything becomes, your path and the ground will be very positive. Because of that, so then you will have good friends, you will have family, and yourself will be happy. So then everything actually, if you have the Sampasambo, so then everything becomes, your path and ground. It says that your path and ground will be positive, means like everything becomes positive. Okay, any questions?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
I have a similar question. If you intellectually in your mind you overcome your anger, how do you, and maybe you've answered this, but how do you then become so you don't react with the anger? In other words, even if you control it intellectually through your mind and say, I don't want to react that way, but how does it get to the next level where you don't feel it?
Fit in the practice, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I find this one. Also, there are lots of cheers, the dishes are long, pena the condogging image to touch it some the match lang also best sem nal changma yores ha go yu ta shape sort of ke jere do shape sort of ine ta di une chung yun de zamwala ta di ta de sem nal jangshi yu ta option jangshi yu sort of shwa ta di une ko ma page chiale de di kandes ni chia bore si go
어다티 라는 너버징이 투수나 다리티 람산 셈삼부티게 마투네 파치 삼루다 이 셈삼부지고야 돼 셈버는
쇠바 쓰거든요 쇠배 냠레스 워 그러니까 쇠배 냠레스 쇠바 콘로시나 님이 되는데 요 쇠바 시나 표현 되는데 요래서 상황 아주 딱 이제 장시 딱 시디요 레스 워 다음에 직 되게 게임을 채용도 삼발라 되게 카르도 그런데 냠렌들 간다 스케 오래스 유서
다들 그들의 냠렌디 담부 그들의 콘루데 지게네 남산 삼루다니 디 미리 바이 저리 개발해 종이 삼부지 삼루됐다 단센지 데트마 차도르바 아디 단수네 그도 그래야지 담부대 콘루데 지게르바 이니야 디 기름부 마셔버지니 아니 삼루다야 되게 다 아니 딘데 제수네 아니 남신은 그도들 동네 지도 그래서 담부대 그도들 동네 맞지 제마트네 디 기름부 마셔버렸더니 콘주님이다 서베 페인도 삼루다 텔레콤디 제수네 아니 남신
So the when Rinpoche is explaining, it seems like in order to have that kind of ability to detect that kind of situation right away, they put out your practice of patience requires your practice and patience. So I said initially when you get you fall into that kind of situation, you may not able to detect what the situation, you may not realize what's happening at the moment. You may react, you will get angry instantly. Then uncontrollable is sort of like you will get angry. So in the beginning, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. So when you go back, right? So what happens, like without knowing all this benefit and disadvantage and advantages of doing practice and not doing this patience. So practice is like we used to keep that going, continuing with that kind of anger, endless, sort of like endless. Then what happens, like because of your knowledge, because of understanding of these advantages and the disadvantages of these practices, right? So then you will take a time, you will pause, sort of like you will think about it. So then as soon as you start thinking about this, right? So then your anger will kind of diminishes and it becomes less kind of intense right away because of this thinking, right? So then you should think that so I react in that way, so that was bad, so I shouldn't have done this, and you think about it, reflect on that, right? And then you should kind of like promise yourself that in the future, if something happens, I will able to catch, and I will able to do this practice right then, sort of like to just make that commitment. You may miss next time, that's fine. Just keep continue doing this, right? And then eventually, so then you will able to do this practice right then when it happens.
I
think Wilson. Yes. I think you're too far.
Obviously, everybody here is very lucky in that we met a spiritual guide who has all these qualities. But sometimes I meet people who maybe took an initiation with someone, but then later that person does something that makes them lose faith. What advice would Rinpoche give to somebody?
Oh, you mean like you're talking about like a teacher and student relationship kind of thing. Okay. So when the teacher does something you may think like offensive or something like that, then you lose faith, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody who's been through that. How would Rinpoche advise that person?
Then this is the Lama Tampa Lama Chi Ten, Lama Sten, and Jama Paji do 6 years, some Lama de Mayo, but I would the Chuma with the Suzuki. In the Hako into some Lama de la Tavala, so in the Key or Esa. The day that would in the mid in the layer, and there was a lobster that was Java and there is Java in Nasi. Lama do a sing at the Euro, Lama do a sing at Euro, something.
That I'm going to Lama de Ten Susutile Ten Meviti Tajetiari Militini and Susu Tajetia, young Militini. Anji midi kande chidang kande to oten gogotani tinde yarba otinde yarite mi shinda le tini ti kande to siti yapu tini ani kole kuyinde da ge rob ha gugruba ti ha gusunitine yende Susute the Maviti.
Happy just a Lama dancer, Lama dancer, Gemma and each my over in the chill tone to some balan to do and Tabara lab is sort of chess on then they give Midzulia, the Labja is Jamna and is Javanese.
That is dancer, that could Katane Payamere. Katane Susu never said to Michelle Marie, Kataya said. Yunde Chuaki Amari Yunde Baby and San Yunde Chuku Yamarba. Gun Kula Gun Yaris Yati Gun the Yune Gun Chani Chuna, never in the Yari, never Yaripina, me Gun Yubarabchina till Sharas Yarabti Chavina. Chida Sharab Chirba, I could Jebi in a teacher chosen Yabatuga, Yabayari, and it could Tinted Susu Yende, Jew, Marikun, Juna, Susul Mepin Verba, Gunsignati Juna, Kula Gunjubery, Middle Gunjubery. Ko yunde chani jugu yarba. Ko yunde tan mevachi yamarba. Yunde chani majubichi gyung chani jubarba. Oti teti kola yunde ni yari, gyuni yari yini. Yunde niga yune susugi. Nyamne chiyati. Gyung chani jugu mebari. Susuli Kebenyari. Yunde Chani Juba in Yang Kebenyari Susula. Yunde Nigan and Yungi Chadi Jus and Rani Kebenya Yamar by Jungi Yuri. Yunde Chani Juna, the Rani Pen Pemba Yungi, Chesan, Yune, Yungi Chani Jubi Neighbory. Shares, Sharati in Shares loves Nimisavierba. Pajole, Pajone, Kosune, Narani Nimi, Magune, Young Channel to run the Uri Karsure, Nimi, Uri. When you see Shared Reba, Senator Shared Reba. Yine gün yari, gün geçen içi, gün meyveli. Ko yine geçen içi, gün geçen içi, gün yamarı esige.
Okay, so many points actually. Let me try. First of all, I must say that before you take anybody as your teacher, that's very important that you should check. You should check on your teacher, and you need to ask around and find out, if that Lama is right for you or not. So you need to do like some sort of like investigation on that Lama in terms of like this spiritual practice and stuff like that, right? So then this is the first thing you should do. Then like after then you decide, right? Whatever you like, so you decide. you make the decision. So then let's say like if someone has taken someone as your Lama, and then in the future, so that you may find some faults and something inappropriate, so then you may lose faith in that Lama. So then if something happens there, right? So then there's many things you need to look for. Like for instance, first of all, that Lama, and first of all, we are not supposed to talk about others' faults. Yeah. So this is not appropriate. We should not, even like if it is true, we should not talk about it. Sort of like we should not say that. For instance, if someone is I don't know how to say in English. If someone loses their eye, one eye, right? Then what we call them, like in Tibetan we call sharwa. It's a very harsh word actually. I don't know. Disform. Anyway. Something like disabled. I don't know. Anyway, so this kind of person we call shara. It's a very harsh word. Very not nice. Okay, nice word, right? So then even though this person is one eye blind, right? It's blind, but you're not supposed to say that. Even that's true, right? When that individual hears that, right, they say that you are blind or you're something, in a harsh way. So that's not, even though that's true, but it's not, kind of like very beautiful kind of things to hear, right? So it actually cause them pain, right? Pain. So because of that reason, we should not actually criticize people with their faults or faults, right? Faults. This is the first thing, right? And then when we see some faults in our teacher, so then we should think really careful whether that is valid or not. Sometimes it may not be valid, not be true. I mean, like not true. That may be just simply your perception, your thinking, way of thinking. Maybe that could be that, right? And let's say then the Lama might have that, this kind of like what you call the faults or faults, maybe not inappropriate kind of things, right? But so then this Lama is not sort of like utterly bad, okay? So this Lama must have some good qualities as well, right? So then you need to think yourself, why I'm going on this negative side. You need to think about it. Why I'm taking on this negative side on this Lama, right? So you should think that. So then, and also it said that, so when you find Lama's faults and stuff like that, and then the Lama is something you're supposed to look from the good side, okay, good side. You should not find, if you take someone as your Lama, okay, this is talking about after you're taking someone as your Lama, right? So then always you need to look for the good side of the Lama. There's so many benefits you can take, you can receive from that Lama by looking at their good qualities, right? Good qualities. So then all of this for yourself, so you can get all this benefit by looking their good qualities. This is the one reason you should not criticize the Lama, right? And then okay. Yeah, it's something like that. So anyway, if I remember, I will say it in the letter. But anyway, so in general, at the end, conclusion, he mentioned that anybody, if you see some faults on them, you should not judge on them based on that faults. So there's always good thing in everybody. So that's why we should not look into the negative side of that individual and judge on based on that. So there's always good thing in them.
that genju seti yaran ki chunje le genju ki mesi yare jida di sangye gyurung gi rik di yesi yare jesan ki chunje le genju ge yamaris odi jena rang nyeba se yare odi isni senje khande ji ni genju suna nyeba yare ya ku Simje di Gyatuma, Nevana Rang Majabal Tami Chubari, Pajabal Tami Chubari, Digi Gadit, maybe young but Tanga Michu Cheti Yerba, and Nikula Ginju said the Chiguyamari. Inia Gabgala, Pondru of Juma to Juni, Midi, and to judge Chegierba. the Quran Ranshin the member chamber. Condu Dingo to give a niggas to Jachagari. What the insane Ranshin the Jinjig Pama Mambu Jay Johnson, Jinjig Pama of Jin Samba Javina, and Rally Chibaya Mission Jones and memory. That is the G. Quran in the Chabati, Condum to Kudur, I to Bachag. Around with you control that you want to do into it, I negatively to charities. Condu dig Chaviarba. The Condu digirba. Asakura Ranshin did Zeretani Jamzetani of Jirba. Iniata Condu didn't want to do into the money, a Jamzi. Jamzilla never of Jenny, Jamzilla to do my jubilee. Nearly never of Tinny Sigerba, or Dinisani. Jita, Senja Tamje, Messenger Tamja Sigerba, or the messenger Tamja Siatina, Senja Kangan Judia. Rangi, Mama Jevachikame, Majev, Drang Mechubache, Majimbe Negos, Jinse may become but the cheaper ever, or Dinisani. Did some Rutani Negabi Jabat Timbu to Judge Jenny Kurala Jamdi Dangi Mabri Kuran the Jawati Chani Genju Jawati Genju Chibura Jawati Rangi down to Limbu Kuran what did it?
So then, even it said that we should not criticize dogs, right? Dog, we believe like they're like lower kind of round beings and stuff like that. Even it said if we get into really deep kind of spiritual kind of practices or dharma realm, so we should not criticize dogs and animals, and even though they are like lower in terms of like realms, if they are even lower than us, we should not do that, because one reason is said that because they, even though this the dog, right, the sentient being as a dog is as a dog at the moment, but within that dog actually there is a very holy things, presence in that. So that is called like Buddha nature. So that's why if you criticize these beings, right, even though it appears a dog, so you're criticizing that quality as well. So that's why you need to avoid criticizing any sentient beings. If you really dive into really deep kind of like dharma thing, right? So we should not criticize even a dog because they have a potential of Buddhahood. So because of that, we should not criticize even it's a dog. Right? So that means it includes like entire, even your teacher and everything, right? So all of this includes in that. So you should not criticize any sentient beings because of that reason. So then and then you should think like when someone's doing bad thing, right? Bad thing, and then you should think that they're doing because of their mental afflictions. It's not they're doing by naturally. So when the mental afflictions kind of arises within that individual, so that sentient being and the beings, so then they kind of like exhibit in a very negative way. So you're seeing, their actions, their negative actions is actually forced by mental afflictions. It's not by like any other forms of like a mental thing, right? So then the natural kind of sentient beings' mental state is very compassionate and very loving and very gentle. So the natural, the mental state of beings are very gentle. It's not harsh at all. So then we can learn that because we believe that we have been taken different types of like form, like all this reincarnation and stuff like that. Each time we actually rely on a mother. So then when they become a mother, so their natural kind of this instinct, arises, which is really the gentle and then the compassionate, all this kind of thing, right? So the nature of the natural kind of like the mental state of beings is compassionate. Okay, so when they do bad things, so then what happens? Like their anger actually kind of removes that kind of the natural quality of the beings. So then they become like bad, bad beings, sentient beings. So we call them as bad sentient beings, right? If you really wanted to criticize or do something about it, so then you, instead of attacking the individual, you should attack their action. You should not be agree with their actions. If there's a negative actions, you should not be agree with their negative actions. You should not be participate in their negative actions, but you always keep them in your compassion mind. You should not let them go out of your compassionate mind. So you against their actions, but not the being.
Oh yeah, that should do seems.
Okay, we'll stop here then. Sa shi böge jong shi me do chang le ra lin xin ni de jian ba sa ye xin do mi de lu wa yu zhou gu nam da xin la che ba shi man ja la ga mi ya ta ya mi
Jiang Ju Shen Ju
ren bo che ma ge pa nam ge ju chi ke ba nya ba me ba ya
Gong Ye Gong Lu Te Wo Shu Ga Ri Re Re
bo we xin gam su pan da ge wa ma lu ju me che re si wa ten zi ja zu yi
Xie Re Si De Ba Tu
ten ju chi